Hey now, and welcome to Proper Modulation,
Hey
a
now.
show about the Howard Stern Show. I am one of your hosts, GPD, and here's your other host, Kurimanju.
Hey now.
We might have a problem with your name, Kurimanju.
Why would
We need like a shorter version of that.
you could call me Kurisama?
No.
You could
How about like KM?
KM.
The problem is that people already give me a tough time
Uh-huh.
when I have to say something in a Japanese accent. I feel like it's almost like you were trolling me with this name. I feel like could have named your name Karaoke.
Karaoke. Wait, listen, Kurimanju isn't it's something that I was given by my family. My wife's Japanese. So my niece, my goddaughter, named me Kurimanju. It was a bonding moment. It became something. 10 years later, I use it and it's who I am. I am Kurimanju.
So if I alter it in any way, I'm like insulting your family and their ancestors,
Well,
basically.
I'm just saying they might kill you. No,
Or they'll kill me.
they'll kill. I don't care. You can call me whatever you like, but Kurimanju's the man, man.
How about hey you?
I answer to that actually. Or
All right,
douchebag.
well, I'm gonna work on that.
Okay.
That was like a late breaking news item right before we started the show. I was like, am I going to call you like your real name or that weird Japanese name? Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. The reason why we're doing this show is because Kurimanju and I were basically already meeting once a week and having a discussion about the Stern Show. It may, there wasn't an outline or anything like that in front of us or anybody watching, but we were basically already having these discussions.
Yeah, the only difference was my wife would say, "Stop talk. I don't want to talk about this anymore."
Right.
It's
I think this is actually like going to help our marriages because I'm like, oh my God, Mrs. Chibi, Sal, was talking to squirrels today and, she's like
Sal's
half
a turtle.
listening. Like, yeah, Sal's a turtle and his cock is
Who's
gone.
Sal? Stop saying "Hey now." Don't answer questions with "Hey now." Like she
Yeah.
gets upset when I do that.
Oh, I don't do that. I don't do
Oh,
that.
oh, sometimes I get stuck.
No, no,
"Hey
no,
now."
no, no, no. I don't do that.
Hey now.
I will only tell Mrs. Chibi the interesting parts of the show. I will not torture her with any of like the isms, the sternisms at all, because
Dude,
I know where to draw the line.
what was your number one from uh last weekend or this week? Like your number one thing that you wish you could have brought up? Because I know this week we're just going to talk about this week.
Oh, well, I told her how Shuli left the show. That was the number one thing.
Ooh, Shules.
Yes.
Dude, I
Shules?
love
No, I don't
Shuli.
think nobody calls him Shules. I don't think.
I call him Shules when I talk about him to myself. My Shules, that guy. Or like when I'm like, shalom back at him. I love him. I love Shuli. He's a funny guy.
Um.
And
So
he's a
yeah.
gamer.
So basically, that's the show. Is that we're gonna meet probably once a week, and the way I guess I think of it, it's like just as like the CADcast, my other podcast, is sort of about video games.
Right.
This is sort of about the Stern Show and the topics that they talk about, and also like how we feel about those topics and if we can relate
Right.
to those topics. And that's the show. And what the show is not, which I think is equally important to say, it's not. I don't know if you've been on the Howard Stern Reddit.
Oh my goodness. I couldn't see for a little bit after. All I saw was red. It was weird. I was rage just filled my head.
Right. So this is not a show for the people who like that particular Reddit, where 90% of the posts are about how everything sucks and everybody sucks and everybody's horrible people. And like I've never even seen like what kind of fandom is that? Like I don't
I
even
don't know.
understand that. But
I don't
that's
know.
like
I
a
guess
whole episode right there. I
yeah.
could spend a
Right.
half an hour talking about that. And maybe
Right.
I don't know, maybe we'll get to that at some point in the near
Right.
future. But this is not going to be one of those like show. There's already shows like that exist. That if you want to hear people bash the show for an hour or 2 hours, that exists for you. That
Right. Exactly.
this I feel fills a void in that there's no shows for real fans of Howard that just want to hear other fans talk about it, but also not to the extreme. I listen to the wrap up show, but they're on the payroll, and certainly there have to be rules about things that they can and can't say.
Right.
So they're limited in a way, but we don't have that limitation. and I think that might make things a little more interesting.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
so, and that doesn't exist now. That just doesn't exist now,
You can't
as far
find
as
it
I know.
anywhere. And
Right.
and for the show to kind, I think it's. I'm glad that they are a little bit more respectful to each other on the wrap up show. I love all of the conflict. I think the reason why we like it so much is because everybody loves watching that fight that's just far enough away that you don't have to get involved. Like you don't have to call the cops about this road rage, someone else is.
Right.
So I'm just gonna watch. And that was the show. And then you'd be like to able to get out of all the coworkers you hated then at the office. You're like,
Well, that
oh
was the
man,
old
that
wrap up show, I
was the
guess.
old wrap up show. And then
Yeah.
you have people leaving the show unhappy. But now at least they don't hopefully hate each other more than they do on their happy hour.
Right. Right. It's
I mean,
it's it fills a purpose, but I feel like this show also can fill a sort of a different purpose than the
right.
wrap up show. So I thought we would start the show, sort of talk about our Stern biographies. When did you start listening?
I think I started listening. I have had a job since I was like 13 or so, and my brother was my hero. So when he drove me to school, I'd listen to Stern. And then I had jobs where I'd have to like clean shoes for like 4 hours
Clean
by my.
shoes?
I used to do. I used to work at a tuxedo rental shop.
Oh my god.
So I'm cleaning shoes and I'm like trying to get any kind of radio station. And all I got was like one 70s music station. So finally, when I could listen to talk radio, I like drank it all in
Sure, it was like made the job a lot better.
a lot better. And then I fast forward, I'm doing research. And I'm sitting in the tissue culture hood for 8 hours in a period. And I couldn't get any radio. So I would record the show the day before and then listen to it all commercial free because I cut out the commercials the
Right.
next day. So I would have like a
You cut out the
photographic memory.
commercials?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Well,
how,
it takes time. Not all of them. You think I had that time?
but like you weren't doing that on a computer.
Yeah, you could do it on a computer.
But when was this? What year was this?
I'm not that old. It was when I was a professional, as an
Oh.
adult. It was like 20 years ago or so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So, anyways,
yeah. We
go
didn't
ahead.
have the computer processing power to be doing that when I was a kid, when I was listening to Howard for the first time.
Well, you're much older than me.
Yeah, we had to do it the old fashioned way on
Do you go
cassette.
back to Channel 9?
Well, I listened to a lot. I watched a lot of Channel 9. That's part of my bio. That's part of my Stern bio. So you started listening when you were 13, but you're younger than me.
I'm younger than you, but I do
Don't
have an
brag.
interesting moment that I remember, but I'm going to let you do your bio before I mention that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I started listening when I was in like I guess high school, and I somehow convinced my dad, who bought a new Dodge Shadow, that like, oh, you should just let me have this car because you don't really need it that much. Just let me bring it to school, like, and if you need it, like, you can just take it.
Right.
But then I really started listening. Once I had a car, I feel like I really started to listen a lot.
Aha.
So
Okay.
like, even though my drive to school was like really short, if I left early, I could sit in the parking lot and listen more. And often, like, if something was really crazy was happening, like, I'm really pushing it, like, on the bell, making the bell or not, because I don't want to, I don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I started listening on K Rock, 92.3 K Rock, in high school, and then they had the Channel 9 show, which was like really good for somebody like me who didn't have a lot going on Saturday nights.
Right.
Like once in a while, like I hang out with my friends and we would like play Wayne Gretzky hockey or something really cool like that.
Right.
But on other nights, like I didn't really like Saturday Night Live that much. It didn't feel like that was that exciting to watch Saturday Night Live. But when the Channel 9 show came out, I didn't feel as bad sitting at home by myself watching TV. Like I felt like something crazy was going to happen. And it did, like, every night. And I never felt like
Right.
it helped like dull my nerdiness a little bit. Like I forgot that, like, oh, I'm sitting at home and Saturday night at 11 o'clock watching TV when there's other people like fingering girls and stuff,
Signing breasts.
signing breasts and everything. And I'm just like
Evaluating.
watching TV. I'm watching like budget comedy. And then, so I've been listening, and then I moved, like, obviously I went to college. I listened less in college, but afterwards, I really started listening a lot when I moved to Japan in 2005 because I needed I just needed entertainment. I needed like a connection back to America somehow.
Mhm.
And I was subscribing to Sirius, but they didn't have like the technology of like just downloading the shows. But they did have BitTorrent technology where you could download the shows and all the commercials were taken out. And I did that. I was still paying my Sirius subscription every month, but I never like once touched it because I was just downloading the shows. But I didn't feel like I was stealing because I was still paying my bill every month. But
Right.
it was how I could listen and walk around Tokyo and stay connected with America basically because we didn't have not watching TV. I didn't have cable to watch
Right.
American television
For YouTube.
or yeah. Well, that was up and coming. I was making YouTube videos then. I was the YouTube content back then. Um, and then when I was living in Japan, I won one of those charity auctions where you can be on the Stern Show. And because I was living in Japan at the time, I was able to sort of like snipe the auction because it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon for me, but it was like 3 in the morning in America when the auction was ending. So I feel like I got the cheapest Stern Show visit, on air visit of anybody who ever bought one of those Stern Show auctions. I haven't really looked it up, but from what I've heard that other people have paid, I feel like I got in there at like a quarter of the price. Um, so that was really great. I could do a whole show about that
That might
probably.
have to be a show because I
That
think there are people who, because I just as a listener, like listening to the auctions and stuff, and I lived in Jersey, North Jersey, so it was feasible to go and check it out and go to work afterwards or what have you. And I was always wishing that I could have done something or had the time to do it to like get in because it's like you described, it's a timing kind of game. And like I remember when they were doing the walkover from K Rock to Sirius not being able to get off of work because it was some type of corporate announcement,
is that
which was a
the police
nightmare.
by you or the police by
They're
me?
coming for me, I think.
Duck.
I'm trying to. I think they got wind of this podcast. They're trying to stop it. It's not that good. Like this is enough.
Trump supporters, I think.
Go back to the replay. Listen to Tuesday again.
Right. So yeah, so we did the charity
Yes.
auction and yeah, I was actually living in Japan, so I had to coordinate the visit like with a visit to America because I was still living in Tokyo at the time. So we did that. It was great. It was good. I'll say one thing about that visit. I'll give you one quick story.
Yeah.
Is that when they brought us into the studio, and it was me and Wombat from the Catcast. I brought Wombat with me. We brought us into the studio during like a commercial break, and you don't expect like they open the door like you're going to be on the show, like
Right.
that's why you're there, right? And
Yeah.
at some point you're going to be in the studio, but you still don't realize like it doesn't hit you that a door is going to open and you're going to walk through it and it's just all going to be there. The studio, Howard, Artie, Robin, and there's chairs and you're going to sit in those chairs. And so I remember we walk in the door and all of a sudden like there's Howard, right? He's like there's his at the desk, he's sitting there and he looks up and he says, "Hey guys." And I was like, I just was not expecting, like, I even know I should have been expecting. I wasn't expecting. He looks up and he says, "Hey guys." And I just look back at him and I say, "Hey guys." And then I realize, I'm like, oh no, no. And my mind is screaming in me. And I'm like,
Oh,
and,
that was
and I
my
was just like,
question.
oh man, this is not off to a good start at all. But it actually went fine after that.
Well,
Um,
you did well. I remembered you, dude. I'm sitting in the tissue culture hood, right? And you're talking about
what is
living
it
in
called?
Japan,
Tissue what?
tissue culture hood. I was propagating cells for experimentation on cardiovascular disease research. Very exciting
Okay.
things.
I thought that was the
So
name of
it's
the shoe store for a second.
that was
Ah,
many years before.
okay.
So, anyways, don't get me sidetracked. I got to get
Yeah.
this out before the cops come back. I'm on
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm on
Yeah. Yeah.
house arrest. I'm not even supposed to be here. But anyway, I'm listening there, and I'm in there. It's like hour 4, and then they start talking to the d-bags who got to be in there, because I can't. I got to work. I can't get off of work.
Of course,
right?
I
And so they're
hated all
talking,
those people.
right? And I remember hearing you and Wombat. I'm like, they sound like they have, radio experience. Like you delivered yourselves well. You didn't stumble over your
cool.
words. You sounded like broadcast.
You know what the best part of it? The best
What?
part was that a main goal of being on the fucking show was to plug the podcast that you say that you so and whoop, right out of my brain. I plugged the website. I got to plug cheapassgamer.com, but he said, and he teed it up for me. He said, oh, you guys are buddies or something, which is the point where I'm supposed to say, oh, actually, we host a podcast together. And then you have a whole like 5 minutes talking about how he hates podcasts and,
right.
Oh, do you guys make money? Blah, blah, blah. And I just like I said, when he said, hey guys to me, and I said it back, I knew like I wouldn't be able to stick to the script completely. But
I'm so thrilled you told this story, because I was dying. I thought that they wouldn't let you. Because I was like, why isn't this guy plugging his thing?
I couldn't plug. I asked him, can I plug the website? I told him, they asked me what I did for a living. And I said, can you plug and I said, is it okay if I plug the website? And he said, sure. And I did. But the point to bring up the podcast was when he said, how do you know you guys? And it was the truth. Like, I know him from doing the podcast. Right. That's what fucking moron. Told you not to be stupid.
I think it gives me more faith in Marianne, because I felt like sometimes she gets so starstruck. And when she was opening the present, I thought it was so genuine. But at the same time, it's like, come on, Marianne, we've been listening together all these years. It's got to wear off in you at some point.
Yes,
but I'm glad to hear that you froze, because
I feel like if I was on as much as Marianne, I would have held it together. I would have not have said, hey guys, back. I would have said, like, what's up, Howard? I love you, or something awesome, instead of anything but hey guys. That's really the only thing I couldn't say back, I feel.
Well, it was great, though. You're describing exactly how I would have imagined Japan to be at the time. And it's like, that should have been me, only to know I meet you so many years later and get to learn the behind the scenes. So there you have it. GPD.
That's right. All right.
Inside story.
I guess we could talk about that some other time. I don't want to blow. I mean, I don't know what else I have to say about that, but we have a lot more to talk about. I thought the other thing that we'd get into before we talk about the big Stern Show news of the week, which is, I think, Shuli leaving.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if you had like a segment on the show that you would call your most powerful memory of the Stern Show, like something where like when people say like, oh, not me, I'm not that old that I know where I was when JFK was shot. I was not born yet, but like something where where you were listening to when that happened on the Stern Show. Gary getting the squirt in his eye, is that it?
Oh man, there's so many. It's hard. It's probably something we'd have to do like every. But
you don't
I
have
know
one. You don't have like what you have. I feel like you might be a bigger super fan than I am.
I'm like a super fan that was afraid to hang out with like the Insane Cloud Posse, but I loved hearing of like embedded within ICP, and I go around my house saying whoop whoop, and I taught my wife what it means. But
yeah, you're on a slightly different level.
But I'd say I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when Baba Booey did the McKine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was mowing the lawn for a buddy, and I'm mowing the lawns like a Saturday, and I'm listening to the show, and it's a recording. Like I just have, even from like taping it on cassette tapes. I never listened to it live because I never was able to. And I'm listening to this, and I know where the guy's going, and I'm like, he's not going to fall for this. And then he's like,
he's an executive producer of the Howard Stern Show.
I love Gary. He's a genius.
He went to Adelphi University.
He knows the difference between Gautier and Boutier, but step back. Anyway, and he's like, McKine, like so hard, like such determination.
Yeah, no, he knew it. He knew it. He was so sure.
I almost died. I couldn't breathe because it's the funniest thing I had heard in so many years. It still was.
Oh,
I get carried away. What's yours?
Mine's the opposite of that. Mine's the sad one. I have a sad
Fine.
one.
I'm sorry. Okay, go. Tell me your
Mine's
sad one.
when Artie did his heroin revelation.
Ah,
And he just broke
yeah,
down and said that
yeah,
he, was back on heroin and that like, he was a mess basically.
yeah, yeah.
And like he couldn't like I remember I was still living in Ojima in Tokyo, which is like where there's no foreigners. Like I was the foreigner.
The tall foreigner,
I was the white
five,
guy
four
in the
feet.
town. But I was like,
Well,
yeah, it was ridiculous living there. But I remember like I just had lunch and I was walking back home from lunch and I was listening on my downloaded copy and Artie just broke down and like I was crying, like walking down the street, like crying, like and I was like, oh my God.
it was heavy. That was real heavy.
Right.
I think I was late to work again. Like half the time I'd be late to work, sitting in the parking lot waiting to get to the commercial break. And I think that was heavy.
I'm gonna be late to work.
I thought we said no. I thought we said no impressions.
Before we started doing this, we said, all right, we can't just be saying "Hey now" back and
Hey
forth to each other,
now.
or "do" over and over again. It's gonna be really annoying.
Do
It's
do
gonna be a very very strong pull to do that, but
exactly.
we have to just take a deep breath and maybe not do that.
Maybe not. Well, these are good memories. What do we got next?
Okay, let's talk about the big Stern Show news of the week, which is that Shuli, after 15 years of being on the Stern Show, has announced that he has left the show to do his own thing. He's going to be continuing doing stand-up comedy. He's already started a podcast that is on Patreon is how you say
Patreon?
it.
Don't
I guess
patronize
I
me.
guess depends where right, yes, Patreon. And yeah, and he's on Twitch, and that's it. He's doing his own thing, and I actually listened to his. I signed up for his Patreon, and you did it too, right?
Yeah,
And
I like
listened.
Shuli.
Did you? I didn't catch the whole thing, but I just luckily because I think it was the same night that we did the CADcast. I happened to
Right,
catch it live right when he started talking about why he was leaving. So that was like the perfect timing.
right.
Um, and he basically said that well I missed the very very beginning of that.
Uh-huh.
I know that like the quality of life and being with the family and the freedom to do what he wants. I know that they offered him a part-time. He wanted to be able to do what he wanted to do, like Twitch, Cameo,
Right.
his own podcast that he charges people for. And I guess that's it, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, like if you think about it, these guys used to, when you're a comedian on the show, you kind of make your money on the road because you're like the hottest commodity. You got all day to plug. Everybody wants to listen. Who cares
Sure.
about comedy is going to listen to the show for which way they should go anyway.
For the
And
staff that are comedian that do stand-up comedy.
that's part of their income. So like
But
when
it's
you're
only a
like
couple.
it's only a couple now, but
Yeah,
I guess I'm
sure.
like more of a 2000s kind of guy. But anyway, my point being, like when you take that away for a long
A
period of time, what's the
year.
guy supposed to do with no end in sight?
Move
Is
to
he just
Alabama is what he does. And starts a
right?
podcast.
Did he have the beard before he moved? Was that
Yes,
after the
yeah,
move? So then he's just going back to his normal habitat. Some people find themselves through pandemics, and
maybe. Mandy
but no,
Patinkin.
I don't blame him. I mean, well, did you see it coming? Did you have a feeling like I felt
I
like when he moved, I was like,
well, they said first of all, just to finish what Shuli said on his show, is he said
yeah, yeah,
basically that they offered him a chance to do a part-time gig, like they at
mhm,
obviously a part-time rates, part-time salary and no benefits.
right,
He's like, hey, we need you to do a thing with Tan Mom. Can you do that by
right.
whatever? And then they would allow him to do whatever else he wanted to do on the side. But still, actually, but no, that's not true. He would still not be allowed to talk about the Stern Show or like Sirius.
Right. I'm sure
He was
there's
still
got to be some places that they're not going to let him go just for that
correct.
cohesion they're trying to maintain.
Correct. So that was the sort of the kicker for him because, like he said, he's been doing it for it's 15 years of his life, and a
Yeah.
lot of it was spent on the road with like all the the whack packers, and he's got all
Dude,
this
he
picture.
roomed with Beetlejuice.
I know.
He earned. I never heard of Shuli. I did. I heard the Craptacular. I couldn't sit through all of it. because I'm just not as into the
Too gross.
scatology
Too
as
gross.
some of my other friends. So, but I mean, the guy put his dues in, man. As he likes to say, some of us came up the hard way in comedy, and he came up the hard way in comedy and in Stern.
He
You
had to
know,
he had to have direct access to many smells that none of us
yeah, there we
ever
go.
want to have any access to at all. And so yeah, for
Spectacular,
sure. So
spectacular.
yeah, I mean, I can't even listen to that. I don't know how you could be in
I,
the
I,
same room. So he
oh,
decided he was just going to say, you know what, it's time to just to break away. I'm sure they're not, I don't think the Stern Show is known for their generous salaries or
right.
compensation packages. So I'm
And it's
sure
radio. I mean, you don't get paid
right,
money in. Yeah.
right. So he decided to go out on his own, and best of luck to Shuli. Like I said, I watched like maybe the last half hour of his thing, and he was great. It was
Hmm.
great. I thought it was really even. It was so good that even on Reddit, where they hate everything, they couldn't even hate on that. Even though he
That's great.
said he wasn't going to shit on anybody, they were still like respect. Like he just told the truth.
That's awesome. I want him to go far and to keep doing his elegant Elliot Offen impression. That's what I want. Don't give that up, Schulz.
um, I think while we're talking about that, I want to talk about sort of the policy that the Stern Show has with its staff, where they don't clearly there's a policy where they cannot do cameo, where they
Right,
cannot go and do their own podcasts. They
right.
cannot. Somehow Shuli was on Twitch, and he was the only staff member, as far as I know, that was on Twitch. But certainly he was not allowed to talk about the Stern Show at all, anything about it.
Hmm.
Although he did push the line a little. He had some like drops that he would play that I was like, if Howard heard this, I think he would not like it. But regardless, that was not allowed. But like we said
Right,
before, you could, if you were a comedian or decided you wanted to be a stand-up comedian, somehow that was allowed. I don't.
right,
I guess it's because Jackie was in so early and there was a precedent there. But
right.
as far as I'm concerned, it's a little weird that some things are allowed and some things are not. Like stand up comedy is allowed, you can make money off of that, and big money. Like Artie made a fortune off of that, and
Right.
Jackie used to make a fortune off of that. But cameo, and I get where Howard's coming from. Like they don't want to dilute the formula. Like too much of Sal may not be a good thing. But is it too? On the other hand, like you got high pitch Eric, who's like a fucking moron, and I mean, he's making six
Who's
figures, right?
high pitch?
He's making six figures on Cameo, right? Like
Yeah,
yeah,
I
right.
think so. Right. Well, if that's to be believed, I don't know. You were the one who told me about the high pitch on Cameo, like what, a couple years ago, which blew my mind, because it was like, oh my goodness, they're giving this man large sums of money. What is he gonna do with it?
I so anyway, so do you think? I feel like if I'm Howard, I'm not
Yeah,
Howard. Howard, we all know that Howard is a flawed human being, right? Well, no matter
we
how
are
much
all
therapy,
flawed.
we are all flawed human beings.
Exactly.
Howard is a very flawed human being. In fact, that's what made him who he is today. If he did not have that weird ass upbringing, he would not have been dying to get his dad's attention, who was only interested in
Right.
things on the radio. He would have not
Right.
strived for excellence and just devoted his whole life to just being the best on the radio. That would not have happened. And when something like that does happen, just because you can make $100 million a year doesn't mean that it's cured you of all that dysfunction that he obviously sees that he still has because he still goes to therapy quite frequently.
Right.
So I feel like his whole like no cameo policy and sort of not diluting the show is so ingrained into that like work ethic to a fault, totally to a fault. Because at this point in his career, where he's in the literally the last 5 years of his probably his live broadcasting, you think he could just say like, you know what, fuck it. If the show is not as great as it once was because I let Sal make $100,000 doing cameos, maybe that's okay. Maybe these guys who are with me for a really long time, like the Shuleys and the Sals and everybody, maybe it's cool if they make some extra money on the side and it doesn't impact their work on the show. Like they're not doing it during work hours.
Right.
And maybe it would make good content for the show. Like how much does Sal charge versus Richard? How,
Right.
is High Pitch Eric charging the most? Is he making the most? It's just like content that self creates because there's just bound to be controversy from it because someone's going to fuck up too. Someone's going to get caught doing it doing it
Right.
at work during working hours. And then they're going to, like, Howard's going to say, ban them from doing that. I feel
Right.
like and then I'm sure like Howard just doesn't even think about it because he doesn't even want to think about that. He doesn't want to think about anything at this point. And
Right.
I wish that he was a little more generous in that way.
I see what so I fall on the other side of it. I do wish that could exist, but I see this as a large film production, and the Howard's like the director and the actor, right? The lead. And you don't see in a large film production them saying to the costume director, sure, go produce costumes for these 4 other TV shows because you're talented and you deserve to make 500 million. Sure, but we're trying to
It's
do
a good
something
point.
here
That's
that's
in Howard's
big
mind.
and
Yes, that's
multifaceted, that has multi levels of media that it interacts with, that it's a cohesive story. You know what I'm saying?
totally. And that's
And
the way he looks at it. That's the way he looks at it. So, but if he
right,
was really generous though, like if he thought like, I know that like I try to be as generous as I can be with the people that I work with
yeah,
and
he's super
stuff.
generous.
I just try and like I feel like Howard doesn't make that much of an effort. And I like if
Oh, okay.
if he really wanted to, and he like this is like if I had and everyone is great about spending other people's money. I get it. Like I know everybody is really good at that. And I
That's
know that
what I do all day.
Howard values a buck
Right.
no matter how many millions of dollars he has. $100 is still $100 to Howard. I'm sure. Like
He's
as
a
it was
hard worker. Yeah.
the same that it was to him 20 years ago or 40 years ago. I'm sure like he feels the same way. That being said, if he was really generous and was being proactive and saying, how can I make my staff members benefit financially with really without having to even go out of my own pocket, like just like not a handout. Like, he doesn't want to do a handout. He could make his own Cameo app. It's not going to be a big deal. He could make a
Right.
Stern Show Cameo app, Sternio, whatever, and it's just these dudes. And he could say, you know what? Cameo probably takes 50% when they, for their guys. Maybe
Okay.
60, maybe 40, something like that. Howard could be like, I'm a fucking great guy. Not only going to let you make money off of this, I'm only taking 10%. That's what a great guy I am. You're going to make more money on my Sternio. I'm just saying there's
True.
a way if he wanted to, if he had that personality type, I guess, he
Right.
could figure out opportunities for his guys to make more money in a business where they really just don't make that much money, and in a business where
Right.
he's making a lot of money, too much money. People shouldn't really make that much money. I feel, to be honest.
Well, that's certainly a
that's
sentiment that's going around nowadays. If you look at Reddit,
that's another discussion.
that's another discussion. I would just
Yes.
say you make some very valid points. However, the other things to remember about Howard is especially like this week, I think he described himself that way. He's a company guy. He's just that's maybe an old fashioned sentiment, but I'm sure he sees his channels as a business that
Yes.
he's been the CEO of with a loyal team that's been the only reason why they've gotten to where they are. And he couldn't see himself stealing from Roy Rogers, which is like now
Right.
I think that's great, but it's the way he looks at business. He just sees it like, hey, you're part of this team, not any team that's going to pay. You're not a mercenary.
I know, but the
You're
problem
a soldier, damn it.
the problem is the team is very lopsided in that there's one guy
Yeah.
on the team who lives in a mansion. There's a couple
Yes.
guys on the team.
There's a couple guys
Maybe
on
two
the
guys.
team. I would say maybe
Three guys.
4 or 6.
Yeah, a couple guys on the team who are living in mansions, and then there's like the majority of the team who are, would love to make a supplemental income.
Mhm.
That's all I'm
Mhm.
saying, and I feel like Howard could make that happen. And it's also weird, like how come stand-up comedy's allowed? Like, why is that okay?
Right.
They're profiting off the Stern Show for sure.
It's content. He hates it when content goes around. That's what he hates. He hates it when you're because he sees himself on the level of a Cameo or Facebook or YouTube or blah blah blah. So when you give these other platforms
I know
content
he
that
doesn't
should be
want to give
going
free content.
here, he's like, "What are you doing?" You're like, because he says, "I feel like stealing from Roy Rogers would be stealing from my own paycheck. It makes no sense."
Right.
That's how he looks at it, I think.
That's why he needs his own app.
Howard, if you need like a writer, obviously I care more than GB does about you and your feelings, and I don't want to be paid. You can take my salary.
I just think, yeah, that's what I would do. I feel like that's what I would do if I was in a situation. Then again, I could also just be a complete asshole and say,
No,
fuck you.
you're a lovely man.
But maybe if I made $100 million a year, I would not be a lovely man. That's what I'm saying. You can't say like, you can never say like what you would be like in that situation. You can only imagine it and have a feeling about it, but you don't know.
Right.
It's crazy.
That's true.
GameStop's over 310, by the way.
Uh-oh. What time is it? 3:38?
3:38.
Can we pause this? Is there a pause button? Hit the
Nope.
buffer. Play auto buffer.
There's no buffer. I think we're done talking about Shuli.
Okay.
Oh, no. One last thing. What do you think about Howard, the way Howard handles staff leaving? Not mentioning anything about it. Nothing. It's the same thing like when he's taking a vacation the next week. He doesn't mention there's going to be no new shows. It just, you tune in and like, oh, Shuli's not here anymore. Oh, there's no new show this week. I don't like it.
I think that part of what I'm going to project, as we all are right now, because who knows, right? And I'm sure the guy is much nicer than the little sliver of time we see. And he probably might have said other things that we didn't catch, right? Because there are people that Shuli is more than just a figure to. He's an actual friend, a colleague, a father, etc. And I'm sure he's gracious in that end. But I think the guy just looks forward. He doesn't spend a lot of time wallowing in the past. And he's got to, I think that's part of his therapy is to help him look forward and be in the moment and stop obsessing on the past that haunts him. And the show is so good because he's channeled that past to the show. It's where he comes and expresses it.
I agree that that's the way he looks at it. I'm sure 100%. Like he's got a philosophy that's maybe set up by his guru or whatever, but he's got a philosophy and he sticks with it. Like he's laser focused. Nobody can deny that. But at the same time, this guy is with you for 15 years.
Yeah.
You could just say, hey, shout out to Shuli. Thank you for 15 years. He's moving on to something to do his own thing. If you're like really gracious, you plug it.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea.
Doesn't cost you anything to plug it.
Yeah.
And that's it. You could spend a minute.
Right.
And that would be enough. But he decides not to do that.
He's
got his philosophy.
He's also sensitive. I'm pretty sure he's overestimating Shuli's decision and personalizing it tremendously more than Shuli is. Shuli's probably saying, I got a family, so this is what's best for them.
Yeah, that is what he said. That is what he said on the show.
There you go.
All right. This was, I guess, from last week. That's sort of our show intro. We're going to talk about the shows of the week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday show. But before we do that, I guess last week Ralph got banned from Twitter. So I think we need to address that first because I don't think they really talked about it this week.
They did. I think we got a little taste of it, I think, but I don't remember. But I remember thinking, man, I wish I could talk to you about this because I have always been like the biggest fan of Ralph, and I rarely agree with him. Very, very rarely. I like how he's very opinionated. I like how he's articulate with his opinion. I like how he's good on the phone in terms of taking hecklers on. Right. I love it. One of my favorites is he's like, I forget what they're yelling at him about, but he's like, all right, who's next? Go put the fries back in the fryer, you dummy. Okay, who's next? And they had the next. It was like a rope a dope. He's like, next one. Right. But I always worry that this does not translate well to life. I mean, like if you can't say how you feel in the vacuum and then go off and live life and not do those things, I just always thought it would end up bad because he always would say things that I thought were borderline. And I'm like, dude, it's on the radio. And then Howard would create they would walk, like, you don't mean that, do you? Of course not. I'm just upset. And he would be able to get a few more moments to share his actual thought.
Right.
Twitter is not the place for that guy. Not the place. We've seen it. I mean, it's like Twitter is, for some people, I think it's better to have, even if there's a delay button from the send.
Yeah.
You hit send and then it's like 30 seconds before it actually goes out. But I was hurt to see him. I need my geek time, and it sucks.
Right.
Even though I didn't agree with most of the comments, I like seeing them.
I never listened to Geek Time, really. I unfollowed Ralph from Twitter a long time ago.
Oh yeah, how come? Was it because of vitriol?
He's just ridiculous. He's just posting nonsense. His tweets it's all caps and it's all like spaced out, and it's also like I don't really agree with him on anything.
Yeah, I did. But I like that he was there, and that's the funny thing. I didn't know he was banned. I had to search him, and it turned out I had unfollowed him because he just started sharing nothing but nonsense. I was like, I'm tired of being pissed off from looking at my heroes.
Right, I know. You see him around, right?
Yeah, I've always wanted to say hello, but I was like, man, it looks like he's
not gonna like it.
Yeah, he's gonna take it wrong. Like it. Who's this guy? Get off me. Fuck you. Put the fries in the fryer, you asshole. Who's next?
All right.
Poor Ralphie.
Ralphie. He deserved. I'm sure he deserved it. And I love how he didn't know why he was banned. Like, I'm sure, like, when you're that angry on Twitter and you're that into it, when that email comes in from Twitter.com, you're scrutinizing every fucking letter of that thing.
What I loved was that he was searching through Twitter emails, which means he had those email notifications on, which means this guy was keeping himself in like a triggered every email from Twitter, a notification of a response, a like, a comment, a retweet.
It's ridiculous.
Poor guy. We love you, Ralph. Well, I do.
All right. Let's move into this week's show while I sell the rest of my GameStop stock.
This is not investment advice. And for any financial decisions, you should consult your financial advisor.
Right. So Monday, we kicked off the show with Jason's weight loss stories. I am rooting for Jason very much.
I like Jason.
So I like Jason a lot. I got to talk
to
Jason.
Jersey boy. You did?
Well, when I was on the show, I got to talk to him because he was the producer. He's a producer, and he seemed nice and all. And I wanted to give him a joint because I knew he's a big weed guy. And to be honest with you, 100% honest right now, I actually brought one with him, and I brought one with me, but I didn't give it to him.
That's good. You didn't. I think that's a good idea.
Right.
Because, I mean, you meet a lot of people and it's a snap judgment. And I'm sure it's much better for him not to remember you than to remember you as the guy who tried to get him fired at work for giving him drugs.
Yeah, I feel like it could have went either way. Like,
right.
I could have been his best friend, or like he would have been like, dude, like they don't.
I'm not Artie. I'm not on the air.
Right.
I love Jason. Yeah, I grew up in like the same area as Jason. So when he was talking about that Roy Rogers, I felt like I might have gone there. I was relatively sure I've gone to that Roy Rogers. I think. Let's see, Jason. I think he could do it.
He can do it. He's doing Nutrisystem. If he can stick with it, and he's exercising too.
Is Nutrisystem like a meal kit or it's a point thing?
It's a meal kit.
It's a meal kit. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it easier.
Yep.
Pandemic, he ain't running out to the shop and supermarket.
No. But I hope he can do it. I really it's not healthy to be where he is. And
right.
I'm selling the stock right now. Sorry.
and
now you'll have my full attention.
And again, this is not financial advice. You shouldn't follow his moves.
Yeah.
It's about to double probably.
Yeah. I just
at the same time, with Jason, I think that Jason, how do you feel about I'm getting far ahead of myself. Yeah. I just like talking about anything about the show. Why don't you keep us moving?
Okay, let's keep it moving. I'm trying to see. So the best, the sort of the funniest thing for me was when I tuned in and they were doing the Larry King obituary. The in memorandum of in memoriam, and they
Section
were just
D.
ripping on the guy for like an hour.
Right.
Like they ripped on. He's like, oh my god, he must be like. They're like, oh, he's a sweet guy and all, but like, boy, he must be so insecure. Like, got married 6 times. All the women are like, they're all models. They're or like former beauty queens.
Did he marry like his fourth wife twice or something?
I who even knows? But it's like, and he was one of the women he dated once and then married, like
Yeah.
married on the first date. And Howard says he must be so insecure. I mean, I get it. Like, look at me, look at him. I understand what it's like to have that insecurity,
Right.
but he's on another level because he's just marrying the women. Like, he's like, oh, the woman like is somehow interested in me. Like, marry them.
Can't
And
let
the
this one
whole
go.
it was like and not only that, he brought Beth downstairs with him so that she could tell the story about how when Larry hit on her and like didn't pay any attention to Howard when Beth was in the room.
I tuned it out. I
Right.
tuned out a little bit during
Yeah.
that. I liked. I mean, who's more insecure? I just think that's like, let's just throw stones at our own mirrors. Really, I mean, who's more insecure? I can't tell. But at the
Right.
same
Yeah.
time, I loved like the clips like where Larry's falling asleep during the interview. I mean,
Oh
things
yeah.
like that. I would almost die laughing. Like, or when he got the wrong name for the Beatles. You remember that? He called
Ringo, yeah.
Ringo what do you
George
call
or something.
yeah, something like that.
Or John. Maybe John even. Or when he pissed off Seinfeld, when Larry King pissed off Seinfeld, did you see that one?
Oh,
When
don't tell me, I
he
forget
missed he
that one.
basically said to Jerry like he's like your show wasn't canceled, right? Something like
Right,
that.
I remember
And
that.
Jerry was like, "What? Canceled?" He's like, "It was the #1 show on TV. You don't know the show Seinfeld? Like 75 million people tuned in for the finale." He's like, "You think they canceled that show, Larry?" He's like, "Do you know who I?" And he was like, he's was there was a little smile, but he was pissed. I think Jerry was genuinely pissed. And then he was like, "Can somebody get Larry like my resume or something? Like, you do any research?" And he wouldn't let up. And Larry is just like shrinking into his shoulders. And he's like, "All right, already." And then they go to commercial, and Jerry's still like giving it to him. Poor
That's
Larry.
what I miss. Rest in
COVID,
peace.
and he died of COVID.
Yeah, yeah,
Fuck.
yeah. It's a shame. We gotta be careful.
What else do we have from Monday's show that you think really stuck out? I
Let's
didn't.
see.
Monday show wasn't like a super home run for me. I didn't have a lot of feedback from Monday show other than Larry getting goofed on for an hour in his obituary.
Yeah, I think the things that had me going was the caller feedback, bad callers, and I love it when Howard loses his shit on callers. That's like that's classic, perfect Stern for me. And then when the Trump impersonator song,
That was
did you catch
okay.
that on Monday?
But
I was dying. I thought it was perfect.
there's one of the Trump impersonators though who's like really really good.
Yeah,
There's one guy who's like a 9 or a 10. And
yeah.
then there's some other guys who are like a 4.
I love those guys, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love those. I when he started putting it on the show, I was like, holy crap! I might get stuck to this radio again because I just they always make me laugh, and then they would throw in the little like, okay, or like,
Well, yeah,
let me tell you,
good.
at the bumpers of the song. I was like, I'm gonna listen to that on my own. That
Like,
ranks up there with like when you were talking about Jason, I kept hearing Fred play the like the elephant noise. I'm not gonna make the noise.
right.
And when I think of the Trump impersonators, I'm always gonna think of that song now. Okay, like I
Wow.
can't help it.
I'm
It was
glad that the song touched you so much.
it did.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play it for my mom. I love it.
I like the fake Trump calls, like
Oh yeah.
when they would try to win over Ronnie's vote. That was kind of
That
funny.
was great.
I felt bad for Ronnie in that situation.
Well,
You know.
yeah. I mean, it reminds me of my family and friends. Every time I post something like, "Hey, why are you believing in these lies?" They all think I'm only talking to them because I don't know, they feel like a lot of people are coming at them. But I hope that my family enjoys the Trump impersonator songs because I'm gonna be sending it to them.
By the way, Howard blew that situation with Ronnie. I don't want to pick on Howard, but that
Yeah.
situation well, he obviously didn't get the desired outcome, but I know how he could have got the desired outcome of getting,
How?
because Ronnie does not. He's not going to give in to a demand that he's already said no to. In this case, they wanted to know who he was voting. What did they want to know? Who he was voting for,
Who he was
or
voting for, and
give up his
Ralph was going to
sexuality.
strip, give up his sexuality.
So Ronnie doesn't care about that. Obviously, he doesn't give two
Right.
shits about Ralph or what his
And he probably
sexuality
always
is.
has an idea. And he
Ronnie
doesn't like
cares. He cares about the show to an extent, but he's not
right.
gonna. He was so staunchly saying no about giving up the information that to get it out, Howard would have to give up something that would help Ronnie. What
Right.
if Ronnie could get his own radio show back? Whatever that
That
horrible
would have
car
been
talk. Something you have to. Ronnie needed something, and then when Howard threw the vacation back in his face that he gifted Ronnie. That I was shocked. I was like, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't throw someone a gift you gave to someone and say, "Hey, now you owe me." That's not. You gotta butter Ronnie's bread. My boy Ronnie. He wants
Ronbo.
fame. Ronnie, what does Ronnie want? Airtime, fame. What's going to get
I
him
don't know.
more airtime and fame? His own show on Sirius, on Howard's channels. They certainly
Do we
have room
know?
for it.
Do we know if Ronnie wants a show again?
Definitely. Ronnie wants fame. Ronnie wants fame. That's it. He wants people to talk about Ronnie. And if the only way, and that they got rid of his show because it was making Ronnie, I mean, JD didn't like it and
It was the most boringest show,
it
dude.
was the most
Come on,
boring show ever.
ever.
But also, Howard, I'm sure Ronnie was getting to be too much of a pain in the ass. I mean, that's why do you think there's no more of these other shows? It's because it was
Right.
making everybody too much of a pain in the ass. So it's just a wrap up show and Howard show, and that's it. Because he doesn't need the aggravation. It's the same reason why he doesn't let people do the cameos. Doesn't need the aggravation. I
Right.
mean, I'm not saying it's right, but that's his thinking, I feel.
These people have a history, though. Think about it. Smiles, okay? Um, let's fuck. Oh, sorry, LFSW. Um,
You can say that. We're on
I could
Twitch. You
say
can say anything. But
let's fuck some horse.
I feel like the fact that it was all virtual too.
Yes.
Also, like Howard's superpowers are weakened over Zoom for sure. It is. I mean, his power. He has a power of persuasion. I mean, remember we're going to get to the hypnotist in a minute, but he
Right.
talked about how Howard can actually put people in a trance because he's so good at talking. Basically, he's a trained speaker, and you obviously being in the room with somebody helps. And I feel like he would have
Right.
had a better read on the situation. He would have picked up on Ronnie maybe needing something, maybe not specifically money directly, but something that would help Ronnie. Fame. Anyway, that was Monday's show.
That was Monday.
Tuesday's show kicked off with Hal being hypnotized by Scott Schmerin. I don't know how to say his name.
Schmerin.
And I don't know. People think that that's fake and that Sal is acting. I don't
Listen,
think that
everything
Sal's that
Sal.
talented.
I think Sal is he's like a method actor, right? So if you tell Sal to be Sal, and in this scene, Sal is doing this, he will nail it spot on. Or your character is just like when you fell off of the stage. He knows how to do that. But I don't think he's the kind of person to completely fake and make up something and be able to bring the emotion into it.
I don't think he can cry on demand.
No, I don't think so. And I mean, the guy's a genuine guy. He leaves everything on the table. That's why he's so popular. I mean, he's still talking about his family escapades.
There's still new revelations.
There's still new revelations. I mean, the guy needs moderation so he can not completely ruin his own life. That's why Stern has had to dump out on him. He's had to hit the button on Sal. So Sal to protect Sal.
Right.
So for those people who are coming in more recently, this is Sal. I'm sure he's going to be embarrassed about this for a couple of years.
Doom Swap in the chat says, I'm pretty sure it's real. I went to a live act before, and the person sitting next to me was completely hypnotized just from sitting in the audience.
Wow.
I'm
Wow,
sure like
I
certain
believe it.
people are more susceptible to it. And if you told me that Sal is susceptible to blank, I would say, yeah, like, definitely anything he's susceptible to.
It's a dimes. It's the birds.
And to, and I feel like this particular one was a genius move because, like you said, Sal can be the best Sal that he can be. And Sal already thinks that
Yeah,
he can communicate with dead people to a degree or
you're
that he's
right.
getting signs from things. So all they did was say, hey, Sal, you know what you can do already? You're like really just great at it. Like you can already
Right,
do it. We know, we all know that. But
right,
now you're like just like one of the best at it. And so
right.
it's everything's effortless to the point where they're asking him to communicate with people, and then the hypnotist is getting involved trying to help him. And Sal's like, I got this. I can communicate. I know what I'm doing, obviously.
Scott, hold on. I'm talking. What did he? So he's talking to who did he summon? Who was the guitarist?
Well, Leslie West.
Leslie West, who was having a great time, by the way.
That was great. But what I liked even better, I mean, that was really funny. But what I liked
Yeah.
even better than that was I think it was last week when Sal was talking about his how he sees signs when he's his whole thing, his whole thing was which is totally different from religion, nothing like religion, seeing signs. And Howard is explaining to him methodically how it's exactly like these religious fanatics who are seeing signs everywhere. Like I see a bird fly by and they think that that's something. And Sal is just
He can't
like,
see it.
no, he does not see it. And then he's like, Sal, don't you see how your father was obsessed with numbers in the
Right.
lottery? And now you're obsessed with all these numbers and signs and everything. Don't you see that's the same thing, trying to find meaning where there is none, putting meaning into things that have no meaning? Don't you see how that's how you and your father have this bond together? No, I mean, like, I see where you're coming from, but no, I don't think that's it at all. I think it's really totally different. It's just, I, I'm just like,
You're,
I'm driving in my car. I'm like, this fucking guy, like, what? How can you not see this? And that's what I think is great about Howard having so much therapy. I feel that's some of my favorite parts of the show are when Howard is
the
psychoanalyzing
analysis.
people
Right.
or other people are psychoanalyzing other staff members. And I loved having Dr. Drew on before he was like a COVID denier. He was one of my favorite guests. He got sort of relegated to wrap up show at a certain point. But even when he was on wrap up show, I thought he was really good because he would just fucking analyze everybody anyway, even
Right.
and it didn't really even matter if it was true or not. It was still like it sounded like it made sense and it was entertaining.
The words were
Um,
big enough.
I don't think he's going to be on the show anymore.
You don't think so?
No.
Has he recovered yet from COVID? I hope he does. If
Oh, he
he's still
got
sick.
COVID. I even
Yeah,
forgot that he got
he got
COVID.
COVID. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Howard is having on the exact opposite of Dr. Drew now. Like
Like the real doctors,
the
not the
real
kooks.
doctors, like the guys who
So
are in the Biden administration.
right. So I think like Sal, like when Sal, he's like, "Don't you see Sal?" When Howard was telling him, "Don't you see? It's exactly like this." You're watching a man, Sal, who is on the precipice of a breakthrough
Yes.
in psychoanalysis, right?
And
He's
he just
right
goes,
there. He can almost taste
woo!
it. And it's like, it's too scary. Let's turn back. you know?
Don't you remember Sal's therapist?
Right. No, wait, tell me what.
Sal's therapist offered. Sal was like, it was getting too painful, obviously, because Sal's had a lot of trauma in his life. His father's
Right.
philanderer and horrible, like right in front of everybody.
Right.
So the therapist Sal's like, you know what? I don't think I can do this anymore. And the therapist's like, I'm just gonna let I'll see you for free. You don't even need to pay me. And still said no.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, it's painful, man. These things are hard. It's
Of
like,
course, of course. And that's why the guy said, like, I'll do it for free. I know it's hard. Like I'll remove at least the financial burden, but
right.
no. But
Well,
no.
Scott also offered to work with Sal, I think, at the end of that segment.
Yes, he
so
did.
I hope that Sal, I think he said he'd work with him for free as well, or I don't know whatever they decided, but I hope that Sal takes him up on it because it obviously will work for him. It works on him.
Anything,
They could just stop telling him that he's a turtle and, life's.
Later in the show, he was talking about I love Howard and I love listening to Howard, but I don't share the same views on TV shows and even movies. Like we don't really see eye to eye there. So when he starts talking about Bachelor or Missy Peregrine. I don't even know who that is. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I
I
don't
watch
know.
like streaming services. I don't watch network shows. So like, I'm not. I mean, I don't know. So I sort of didn't zoned out on that whole Missy Peregrine thing,
Yeah.
and the COVID stuff. Like, I'm glad that he has the COVID stuff too, but like I believe in it all. So like and it's actually good to hear sometimes, like, because you get specific
Right.
information. Like, I
Right.
was wondering, my kid wants to go to summer camp this summer.
Hmm.
When are the kids going to get vaccinations? That's something that I learned listening to Dr. Agus, I think it was, that I
Right.
did not know, certainly. So it's good, but it's like a public service. It's not that entertaining. I mean, I like the
Right.
Dr. Agus song for sure. Big fan of.
Dude, you were cooking. I saw you. You were singing. You were singing the Dr. Agus song to yourself while you were cooking on your
Possible.
Twitch.
It's
And I
possible.
wanted to like message in. I was like, I can't message anymore. They locked me out. Just kidding. No more spamming. No, I think I'm with you on the COVID stuff, except
Yes.
me, man, it's my background. So like I have a scientific background. So when I'm listening to this, I'm a geneticist by training. What he says is on the level. It's definitely explained, not like I'm 5 years old, explained to the masses, but it doesn't confuse or hide things that are important. So I'm like, I'll take the PSA for one. It's massaging to mine ears. I love that talk.
Sure.
At the
Yeah.
same time,
But
it's
then,
like at least this one people can actually listen to and know how to handle camp, as opposed to some of
yeah.
these others. They want you to be more freaked out. They just want you to be freaked out, and then they'll give you details.
Right, right. There's some helpful information there. I don't like when people call. I mean, I get the value of people calling in who have COVID and have like the guys potentially losing their leg or something like that. But
Right, right. Yeah.
I don't like. I sometimes like I'm in a mood where like that'll like make me faint. Not really, like not
Uh huh.
faint, but
Right.
like lightheaded almost. Like if I'm in the
Right.
shower or something. Actually, I haven't had that happen in a while actually. But
Uh
that
huh.
used to be a thing for sure. Like, yeah, I don't know. So I'm usually worried about that, but that was okay. Later in Tuesday's show, Chris Wilding's former boyfriend called in because Marianne from Brooklyn was insulting Chris by calling him a lousy cocksucker. And
Which
Chris, as a gay man, was like, first of all, I resent that a lot because I consider that to be like one of my greatest skills, and you don't know what you're talking about. And she was very annoying about that whole thing. But anyway, so one of his former boyfriends called in, or lovers, whatever, to say emphatically that Marianne was wrong and that this guy is an elite cocksucker. And
elite status.
I actually enjoy Chris. Elite stat, yes, he's the upper echelon of dick suckers, and I enjoy Chris Wilding a lot on the show. I think I always appreciate his when he gets airtime. It's
Uh-huh.
for me like he seems very quick and witty, and
Yeah, he's super talented.
he's talented. I like his phone calls. The gay stuff sometimes it's always for me it's like right on the borderline of too much. Like I remember when they had Nikki Glazer on,
Uh-huh.
and she was like, I don't know, maybe I don't know how to give blowjobs. She was coming to like a self discovery that maybe she does not give a blowjob properly. And Chris Wilding came in and he was like, I'm going to just show you how to do it on this dildo. And he just came in and he did it. And they never aired the video on that.
Thank
But
goodness.
I was listening to that and I was like, wow. And well, what I was thinking was like, wow, I wish my wife was watching this, or there was a way that I could just like, I wish this was like the Matrix and I could download this directly to my wife's brain. This would be amazing. But
Oh,
I
Mrs.
thought that was
Cheapy.
entertaining, and I find him
Blow
entertaining.
me like a gay man, Mrs. Cheapy, please. What?
I mean,
What?
is that wrong? If
It is a bit meta. I'll just
I'm
say that.
fine with that, I have no problem with that. I
I
mean, the
think
guy's upper echelon. You heard
no,
Max.
he is up echelon. I think it was a weird it's a weird argument. I remember it being an insult, regardless of your gender, to be accused of being a good dick sucker, and I just can't. I just hear it differently. I grew up in a different time, uh, but I do love. That's why I want to ask you: do you think that Marianne? Are we just getting a lot more of her, or is she kind of trying to get a little bit of clout?
Here's the theory. I got a
Because
great theory.
okay, let's hear,
And
let's hear. Because I've been dying. I don't.
I learned the theory from watching the Shuli podcast.
Oh,
Because he said on the podcast that it seemed like they were getting away from the whack pack in general. Less whack pack seemed to be the mandate because that means less stuff for Shuli to do. And if you look at the whack pack, really Marianne is the only one that appears to not be suffering from some sort of real mental problem, right?
except from the obsessive behavior we see exemplified every day.
Right. I'm saying, like, you're not like, it's weird. Even when you have Wendy the slow adult in 2021, maybe it's not great to be laughing at a
Right.
mentally retarded person.
Right.
Maybe
Good
even
point.
if you're not calling her that, maybe
Right.
that's not a great look. And I'm sure Howard realizes that. But Marianne, on the other hand, is just a fanatic housewife. She doesn't have a mental disorder or like, a medical problem. I mean,
Right.
in that way, at least. So maybe
it's not diagnosed.
Maybe it's better. Maybe like in their mind, that's more acceptable. And maybe that's why you see more Marianne.
Right. Well, I think she's better, to be honest, in the sense that like half the job of like an actor or any kind of performer, show up on time, don't be an asshole. That really is the majority of what you have to do to be the person that they call, because you're easy, you get it, you show up, you're early. And she is an easy whack packer to handle. She's not coming smelling. She hasn't got like shit on her leg like Elephant Boy. I mean, she's not trying to slip Jason drugs. And although it's legal now in New Jersey, I think so. Anyway, I think that's why we see a lot of her. But sometimes these fights, I don't know about their back and forth on social media, and I guess people do take it super personally. It seems a little bit excessive. You're gonna go around yelling that someone's a lousy dick sucker, just doesn't even make sense.
I know.
Obviously, the guy's got people who like him. He doesn't need to say it. They will say it for him.
And they did.
You know what I'm saying?
They
So
literally called in to say that she was wrong.
Yeah. So, anyways.
All right.
Marianne let go of the dick sucker.
Yeah.
Although I did like the sound clip. It was good. Lousy dick sucker. Lousy dick sucker.
It's not a bad Marianne, I gotta say. I'm a little impressed or scared.
All right.
They ended the show talking about Benji's therapist situation.
Right.
Because Benji's therapist said that we should see other people, which I guess doesn't happen too often in therapy.
It's not about him, it's about her.
Yeah. I mean, more Benji. I like to hear about Benji. He's always funny. I never get enough Benji. No, there's never too much Benji, never too much Sal, never too much Richard.
Right. I love that show, man. The show is the ensemble.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when they're being when they're just like on air, I don't mean like bits per se. I mean just like Howard talking to them. Yeah, right. Any of the guys, honestly, like any of the staff members, like Chris, anybody, Mehmet, even like Mehmet. I like when Howard talks to Mehmet. I like Mike Trainer. It doesn't matter. Like when Howard's talking to them, that's always good. Is Mike Trainer the guy who does the what's her name? Fucking the old lady, Blue Iris. Someone does a great Blue Iris, and I think it's Mike, but I like that. And Howard always hangs up on it because like he always fucks it up somehow. I guess I don't know.
Timing is off.
He always gets annoyed and hangs up. All right, I think we got to move on to Wednesday's show.
Do we have enough time?
Well, we just do what we got to do.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I got like 10 minutes. I got a hard stop because I got to take my kid to math. But this is the pilot episode, so whatever. It is what it is. Howard kicks off Wednesday show talking about Kevin Hart and all of his business investments, and then sort of segues into Olivia Jade and all that blogging stuff, which is like, it's very, very weird that a 65-year-old man is watching a 20-year-old vlogger. Like,
is it that weird? Let's think about it.
It is weird.
I know a lot of 60-year-old men who go a lot more out of the way to watch a 20-year-old do anything. But
you can get better if you want to see tits and ass. There's a much more efficient way of doing that. We got limited time. no matter what we're doing,
He likes the story.
he does like the story.
He likes the
There's like a
story.
romance to it, I guess,
He
for
likes
him.
the idea of a kept woman. I mean, I think there's a fantasy side of it,
Well,
you
actually,
know,
I think it's more that he wants to do over his childhood. He wants because it was so
and
tortured
have
for
no
him.
worries and no responsibilities and just
He
wake up and I'm gonna
dreams
cook today, guys.
he dreams that he's in college. What if he
Right.
was in college doing his radio show on Instagram or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and he's the one that is making $1 million in college, and that everybody wants to be with and hang out with, and Amazon sending him all the furniture for his dorm. Because
Right.
it's the same way that he watches like these shows that have romance and high school romance types, those movies and
Oh my
things,
goodness. I can't stand
because
I
he wanted that, and or he wants
ugh.
to insert himself in there.
It drives me. I just sometimes I'm
No,
like,
it's
is it Olivia Jade paying for like a
no.
can you guys like the Daily Mail? Like you scroll down half the page and there's always like a Jared and Ivanka story.
I
I
don't
think
think
like
our
Olivia
audience, their audiences mesh up. I don't think Olivia
yeah.
Jade would pay for it, even pay for an ad, any type of ad on the show. Who's fucking gonna listen to it? Howard doesn't care. He knows. He wants to talk about it. He likes it. He wants to talk about it. He knows his audience does not watch Olivia Jade, and probably
Right.
80% of them couldn't pick Olivia Jade out of a lineup, including
Right.
myself. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know which one she is.
Hot
I know
blonde
that she
chick,
didn't
I'm
pay for
guessing.
college.
Right.
Or not no, she didn't earn her way academically into
the
college.
the
She
best
paid her
the
way.
the best part of that whole bit was when Howard was talking. It was mimicking Olivia Jade doing, oh, I'm having such a bad day. I just burned my broccoli. I can't believe it. I guess I'll have to have kale and avocado. And then like cutting to her dad in prison getting beaten with a
I
lunch
love it.
tray.
That's the thing. Like, do we need more OJ or less? I'm for more OJ as much as I find it incredibly annoing. I love
OJ's
it when
Twitter.
Robin. No, I'm talking about Olivia Jade.
Oh, OJ. I thought you meant OJ. When you say OJ, I think of OJ.
Come on, guys.
No,
Come on, guys.
there's only one
So
OJ. I'm
there's
sorry.
only one Olivia.
Stick,
But anyways, if we're gonna listen to more, do we want more Olivia Jade or less? I'm on the more camp because Robin comes in and says, or we could look at this other young woman who actually makes something of her life. And
I
I think
like
there's
when
a
she did
lot of
that.
young
Yeah.
women. We're never gonna run out of examples. And Olivia Jade's gonna still be saying, okay, guys, I had to clip my video and the size was wrong, so I changed the filter, but it's really hard and I'm tired now. So bye.
Robin will
I mean,
drop a bomb.
shoot me.
Robin will still drop like one or two bombs or so
Yes.
on anybody. It doesn't matter who they are, and they're usually pretty good.
Oh, and when she, well, I'm going to get off topic and run out of time, but I
Oh,
loved it when she got pissed at Howard for making her look bad to her friend. This is like last year.
Simone Dinnerstein.
Yes. And she started off the show. Yes, I have to say something to you. He's like, oh. And she just let it out. I said, oh, wow. I said, keep going. I love it. It's been a while since we had a prize fight between the.
The next bit that they went into, which I thought was a real home run, was, and Howard does this a lot, is he's really enjoys calling out the religious money stealers. What do you call these? The
Oh, yeah, yeah.
evangelicals. The
The
evangelicals who are
are the
stealing money from all
fraudsters.
these old people and living in Century Village. And Howard was playing clips of them all predicting that Trump was going to win the election because the incumbent president almost always wins re-election. It's just a numbers game. Like you can look that up. Like it's pretty straightforward.
No, God told them. I no, one of them said
They
that God
all
said
said that.
he won't. We can't let Biden win. He said he won't. Just like that. I can you believe it?
He
If
played
only I
like
knew.
so many clips of those dudes saying that, God told them Trump was going to win. And then them backpedaling and like trying to wiggle their way out of no, prophecy is not what's gonna happen. We do the prophecy because that's what's gonna make it happen. We're gonna get the emotion and we make it happen. I can't tell you what's gonna happen. I can only make things happen by saying it's fucking nonsense, complete nonsense. Yet these dudes are all rich and it's so
One of them one of them told his followers that they needed to pray because he needed a new jet. He
Right.
needed
And he got it. He got the
the.
jet. They bought him a jet. I hate it. It's not funny. You shouldn't even be laughing. I mean,
I'm
that's
sorry.
the
It's just
problem
so
with this
funny.
is that you're crying. Oh my God.
It's just so funny.
It's sad. It's so sad that you can be in like a cult like this where it's the same thing as Nexium. It's like, hey,
Right.
instead of taking a course on how you're going to be more feminine, here's give me $100 and I can buy a plane because God says I need to spread the word. It's the same fucking
I
shit.
get, yeah, but just seriously going back and saying I was very careful not to say God told me that Trump would win. I said that I want Trump to win because you can't. I was
Hate
like,
it.
what?
Hate
And
it.
how?
The only justice is that Howard played these clips for people and we laughed at them. That's the
Yes.
only justice that these guys really get because the audience is like they don't give a shit. Hallelujah, whatever. We'll accept whatever bullshit you feed us.
Right.
This show was the only show of the week where they had a guest, a real guest, and that was Kevin Hart. I didn't listen to the whole Kevin Hart interview. I caught probably about half of it. He's very funny and he always has very interesting things to say. He was talking a lot about his businesses that he was into. I liked his thing about how fame is bullshit now because you got
Right.
people like Olivia Jade who can be famous. What's the point of like, you know, doing all these stand-ups and getting booed off the stage and finally honing his craft when you could just be hot and just have a phone. And then,
That's the thing. You could always be hot and get famous, but at least they had to like dress or they had to say lines on a film.
right.
But now she's just like burning food.
Even on Twitch, you can have like a big yeah. Even on Twitch, you can be like famous on Twitch if you're just hot. Like
Right.
I get all these recommended streams from me, and they're just women with like their breastises hanging out, and
Well,
I'm
I
like,
mean,
well, yeah, I mean I'll watch that. I want to watch that, but
guys
I'm
like
not.
to see it.
I mean, I must be clicking on them because they keep recommending them to me.
You're outing yourself, Chiefy.
I know, but I'm not. I'm not ashamed. It's fine. It is what it is. I check it out.
There you go.
I check
Well,
it out.
I think he's right though. I mean, like if you got someone like High Pitch making hand over fist, how do you value talent in a market like that when it's more from voyeurism and not from unique experience? I never thought of a joke that way, or because it takes costs us. You got to invest time in working out that routine all year. So the next year you do it and it's always spot on. But maybe he should just burn broccoli.
He said it, and then he started talking about what he would do if he was a streamer or an influencer. It was pretty funny. Like I'm heating up my hot water. It's the only drink I'm allowed to have is hot water. Look at this. This is how I do it. Put it on the stove.
But then you got to make sure like you didn't pour enough hot water and say, "Oh, sorry guys, I didn't pour enough hot water, so we're gonna add a little bit more, just enough, and then go back to boiling it."
Right.
You got to
right.
create time. You got to fill the
Content.
content.
Content is king. Well, speaking of time, I've run out of time. I don't know that there was really much more that I wanted to talk about in terms of covering this week's shows. I mean, I think we hit the big points.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think every week we'll try to hit this 3 o'clock or maybe 2 o'clock, somewhere around this. We'll discuss it off air. Do you want to plug your Twitter or anything? Do you want to plug
please
anything?
follow me at I am Kurimanju on Twitter.
You better spell that.
Well, you should have written it down, damn ya.
Next time.
Next time, you can search for me on Twitch. I am Kurimanju. We'll do it again.
Here, wait.
You'll find me.
I am
Kurimanju. You'll find absolutely nothing. You can if you hurry now, you could be my third follower. My wife is following me, and my mom, at least of this morning, was following me, but she might have dropped off after she heard the dick sucker jokes because she doesn't like that talk.
Right. Yeah, if you have any feedback on the show, you can email me or just hit me up on Twitter or email gpd@gmail.com. And that's it. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.